Hello everyone, and welcome back to Bitwig Studio and Music Production. This is lesson 2.10, and in this lesson we're going to do a little bit of a history lesson on the history of the DJ, what that exactly means, and how the technology has evolved to the point where we're going to take everything you see on this table, put into software, and then actually go a few steps further. So let's just begin at the very beginning and talk about what a DJ actually is. So in my opinion, you guys already know this, I like to keep my definitions very, very simple. To me, the best way to define a DJ is just somebody who plays back any kind of recorded music. So that's a very broad definition, but it's as true as you can get. So from the huge festival club DJs, like the people I'm sure you're all familiar with, people like Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, etc., but it goes all the way down to yourself. When you make a CD and you choose you want one song to be played after the other, to be played after the other, that in essence is what the DJ is responsible for, and is really the most important part of any DJ set, is that you pick the right songs and you try to tell a story with those songs. But all the way back to the beginning, when did we have the very first DJs? The first DJs came around about the same time that you had record players, that you had recorded music. So we have a Kate Bush record here, just as an example. And so if I was to pull this out, unfortunately I don't have a record player on this table, but if I did, what I would do is I'd pull out my record, I'd drop it on the record player, drop the needle, and we'd be off to the races, and we'd be playing through that track. Now, originally, and you can even think about it with like jukeboxes and stuff, all you can do is play back one record at a given time. So let's simplify the process. Just imagine we had one record player, an amplifier, and then we're going out through speakers. So you can see our two speakers here. Let's pretend this is our one record player. So I play back the record, but when it finishes, that's it. It's over. And it takes time for me to then go through my record collection, find another record, put it on, and click play. By that time, people have probably left the dance floor, and you're scratching your head wondering, why can't I get people back out here? Well, that vibe, that mood is all gone, and people have probably moved on. People have a pretty short attention span. So that's one of the reasons why the addition of the second turntable was brought in. And the second you bring in a second turntable, what happens is you need something to mix between these two turntables. And that's where the development of the mixer really began. And I have a mixer here on this table, and in a minute we're going to look at this in more depth. But for now, we're imagining these are our two record players, and this is our mixer. And the mixer is going to control the levels and also control the frequency response of our two tracks. And we've talked a ton about frequency already, so I won't go into depth on that now. Alright, so we're going to pause the video for a second, come back, and take a look at this stuff in more depth. Alright, so we're going to walk through a few scenarios, and I'll take you through some of this hardware and all of that. For now, we're going to just pretend like we've kind of evolved and moved past the record player, and we've evolved to what are just really kind of more fancy CD players, referred to as CDJs. So we have two of them set up here, channel number 1, channel number 2, and then our mixer is going to allow us to control the levels and the frequency spectrum between our two channels that we have plugged in. So I'm just going to turn everything on now, and we'll walk through a few examples and sort of just the evolution of the DJ over time. So always make sure that your speakers are the last things to come on and the first things you turn off. That's just going to save you headaches and potentially broken equipment down the road. So I'm going to start by turning on my two CD players here. I'll turn on the mixer, and then I can turn on my CD players. Everything is being connected here with RCA cables, the simplest cabling of all. So if you have any questions about that, just leave it in the comments below. Alright, so we can walk through a few examples. The first thing I'm going to do is pretend like we're going really, really old school, and we only have our one record player, or in this case just one CD player, and it's playing directly out to the house. So I'm just going to grab the first CD on top here, the ropes. We're going a little hipster-ish with our music selections. That's okay though, we can all do it from time to time. And just so you guys are aware of this, this control here is our crossfader, and this will smoothly fade between channel 1 and channel 2. But I'm just going to slam it over to channel 1 for right now, and I'm going to click the play button here.
Head up, look alive, no excuse. What is your kill?
Okay, so what I'm going to let happen is I'm just going to let this track play out. Now, the next song that I want to bring in, I don't want it to just be the next song on this CD. I would be kind of lame. People want a little bit of variation. But the issue is, all I have is this one playback device. And so the song is going to fade out. I'm just kind of here standing around. Going to wait for it to go all the way to the end. And now what I'd have to do if I want to bring in another song, you can actually just kind of keep track of how long this takes. I have to eject my CD, put it back in its case to be safe. Somehow all these CD cases are cracked. And I'd have to bring up another CD. This is the Magic Wands. Let's go to song 2. And you can actually go faster with a record. That's the interesting thing, is that the CD player takes a bit longer. This isn't the state-of-the-art CD player, as you can tell. Alright, so now I finally brought my second track in. Alright, that's the most basic of a DJ, but it's still DJing if you were to do that, at least in our definition. Things eventually evolved. We brought in a second CD player or a second record player. So now what I could do if I wanted to is I'll let this track play back. So I'm going to bring the fader on our second channel all the way down to 0, and I'm just going to fade this in by bringing it up slowly as this track is ending. So nothing really fancy there, but we are at least taking away that gap of time in between like we had when we only had our one CD player. Now eventually things evolved even further, so instead of just fading one out and fading one in, it was designed that maybe we could come up with an idea to have the tracks actually mix a little bit better, so we could have seamless mixes between tracks to the point where you can't even tell that there are two tracks going on. And with these CDJs, I have the ability to actually plug in some USB devices, some USB sticks here. And honestly, this is kind of the way DJing has gone. If you see some of the more fancy Pioneer mixers that are out there today, there's a slot in the CDJ where you can just put in one of those SD memory cards and you're off to the races. So let's try and actually make a bit of a smooth mix. I also want to point out our frequencies here. We're going to look at this in more depth in the next couple of videos. But basically, we never want too much in at the same time. So if I'm going to have a second track come in, I'm probably going to want to cut a lot of its frequency content and then slowly mix between the two. At least that's what I'm going to do in this example. So let's find something that we want. Let's see. We'll just get something playing back here real quick. Again, don't worry too much about everything that's going on here. Now I'm not using headphones, but if I was using headphones, I'd be able to just hear what's coming out of this CD player. But I want to give you guys the example of how this would all kind of work in real time. So I'm just going to kind of kill these switches. Okay, so you can hear just like this. We're really train wrecking. Alright, we're way off, and I'm going to even put it farther off. But now, with a little bit of ingenuity, I can bring these back on. So right now it'd probably be even difficult to hear that we have two different tracks going on here. And I'm just going to slowly fade into our second CDJ here, channel 2. And just like that, we've pretty cleanly mixed from one track into the other. And that's really not the way that you would want to do it in a live situation. You don't want people hearing your beat matching in real time. I made the example really easy for us by using the same BPM. The last thing I just want to show you is that on these players, if you're playing backtracks that are of different BPM, you can actually match them using the pitch fader that we have here on our CDJ. And this all stems back from record players being able to adjust the speed of the playback of the actual needle going across the groove in the vinyl. So if we just play up a track here. I'm going to do this so that I can really exaggerate it. As we increase the tempo here, as I pull this down, you're going to hear the pitch go up and the speed really increase. You can get the chipmunk effect here. But if I had a track playing on my other deck that was going around 140 BPM or so, I could actually still match this track in so we can make one of those seamless mixes. Likewise, I can pull it the other direction if I want. You can hear as we slow it down, the pitch is decreasing. Alright, I hope all of that made sense to you guys. This is a really basic introduction, but having hardware like this is great to practice on, and it means that if you go into a club and you are using your computer or something and heaven forbid it crashes on you, you'll still be able to use the decks that they have there. If you're using really crappy CDJs like these, you're going to be able to mix on ones that are much better. So I hope this has been of some help to you guys. We're going to be getting much more in depth, and I'll be explaining these concepts really deeply as we get into the software. In the next video, we're going to look at a software program that tries to kind of emulate one of these particular setups, and then we'll talk about how we can create that kind of a setup inside of Bitwig Studio. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you again in the next lesson.